The text arrived at 2:47 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon, right as I was finishing a video conference with investors in Tokyo. 23 people on the call discussing a $400 million acquisition, and my phone buzzed with a message that made my stomach drop. We're having Thanksgiving at Rosewood Bistro tomorrow at 7 p.m. family only. Enjoy your TV dinner. Dad. I stared at the screen for exactly 5 seconds before muting my microphone and typing back, "Have fun." The investors were still talking about market projections and regulatory compliance, but my mind was elsewhere. Rosewood Bistro, the upscale restaurant downtown where my family had celebrated every major holiday for the past 3 years. The place where we'd had my college graduation dinner, where Dad had announced his retirement, where my sister Emma had revealed her engagement. The place where they'd apparently decided I no longer belonged. "Miss Carter." The voice from Tokyo brought me back to the present. "Your thoughts on the timeline?" I unmuted my microphone and delivered a coherent response about due diligence and closing dates, but part of my brain was already calculating something else entirely. After the call ended, I sat alone in my corner office on the 38th floor of the Willis Tower, looking out at Chicago's skyline. 32 years old, CEO of Carter Hospitality Group, owner of 47 restaurants across 6 states, and my family had just uninvited me from Thanksgiving. The irony wasn't lost on me. I picked up my phone and called my assistant. "Jessica, I need you to get me everything you can on Rosewood Bistro. Financial records, ownership structure, any outstanding debts or liens. The restaurant downtown? Is this for a potential acquisition? Something like that. How quickly can you get the information? Give me an hour." While Jessica worked her magic, I pulled up the text thread with my family. The conversation that had led to this moment had been building for months. It started in August when I'd missed my nephew Tyler's birthday party. I'd been in Seattle closing a deal to acquire a farm-to-table restaurant group, but that didn't matter to my family. Emma had sent a long text about priorities and family commitment. Then in September I'd had to leave my cousin's wedding early for a conference call with investors in London. Dad had cornered me in the parking lot, asking when I was going to stop playing businesswoman and settle down like a normal person. October brought the final straw. During what was supposed to be a casual family dinner, my brother Marcus had announced that he and his wife were struggling to afford their mortgage payments. He'd looked directly at me when he said it, an obvious hint for financial help. When I'd offered to look at their budget and suggest some financial planning strategies, Marcus had exploded. "We don't need advice, Sophia. We need help. Real help." "What kind of help?" "The kind that comes with a checkbook." I tried to explain that simply giving them money wouldn't solve the underlying problem, that they needed to address their spending habits and create a sustainable budget. The conversation had ended with Marcus storming out and Emma following him, both of them muttering about how success had changed me. Dad had stayed behind, shaking his head. "I don't know what happened to you, Sophia. You used to care about family." "I do care about family. You care about money. There's a difference." That was 6 weeks ago. Since then, family communications had dwindled to brief, polite exchanges. No invitations to casual dinners. No calls just to chat. No inclusion in the group text where they planned holiday activities. Until today's message making it official, I was no longer considered family. Jessica knocked on my office door at exactly 4 p.m. "I have the information you requested on Rosewood Bistro." He handed me a thick folder. "The owner is David Chin. He's been trying to sell for 6 months. The restaurant is profitable but not hugely so, and Chin wants to retire to Florida. He's asking $2.3 million. What about debts?" "Clean. No outstanding liens, current on all payments. The building is included in the sale. Chin owns it outright." "Has he had any serious offers?" "2, but both fell through during due diligence. One buyer couldn't secure financing, the other got cold feet about the restaurant business." I opened the folder and reviewed the financial statements. Rosewood Bistro was exactly the kind of establishment that would fit perfectly into Carter Hospitality Group's portfolio. High-end, established clientele, excellent location, solid reputation. "Jessica, I need you to call David Chin. Tell him I want to make an offer." "What kind of offer?" "Full asking price, cash, closing tomorrow morning." Jessica's eyebrows shot up. "Tomorrow? That's Thanksgiving." "I'm aware. The banks will be closed. How do we wire that kind of money? I'll handle the financing personally. Can you reach Chin today? I'll try. By 5:30 p.m., Jessica had worked a minor miracle. David Chin was not only available but eager to discuss a sale. Apparently, 6 months of failed negotiations had made him very motivated to close a deal. Ms. Carter, Chen's voice was warm over the phone. Jessica tells me you're interested in purchasing Rosewood Bistro. That's correct. I'm prepared to offer your full asking price of $2.3 million cash with closing tomorrow morning. There was a pause. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving. I understand. I'm willing to pay an additional $200,000 for the expedited timeline. $2.5 million total? That's correct. Miss Carter, may I ask why the rush? I considered my answer carefully. Let's just say I have a personal interest in owning the restaurant by tomorrow evening. Another pause. I'll need to contact my lawyer. Of course. I'll have my legal team standing by. By 8 p.m. I was sitting in my lawyer's office with David Chin, his attorney, and a stack of contracts. Chin was a pleasant man in his 70s, clearly excited about his impending retirement but curious about my motivations. I have to ask, he said as we reviewed the final documents. Why Rosewood Bistro? You could buy any restaurant in the city. It's the right fit for my company. And the timing? I looked across the table at this man who was about to make my Thanksgiving revenge possible. Mr. Chin, have you ever been excluded from something that mattered to you? Many times. How did it make you feel? Angry. Hurt. Determined to prove them wrong. I nodded. That's exactly how I feel. Chin smiled. Well then. I hope Rosewood Bistro serves you well. We signed the papers at 9:23 p.m. By 10 p.m. I owned Rosewood Bistro. The next morning, Thanksgiving Day, I arrived at the restaurant at 6 a.m. The staff was already there, preparing for the evening service under the direction of head chef Antoine Dubois. Miss Carter, Antoine greeted me with confusion. I wasn't expecting you today. There's been a change in ownership, Antoine. As of last night, I own Rosewood Bistro. You, what? I explained the situation quickly, emphasizing that nothing would change for the staff. Same jobs, same pay, same management structure. The only difference was that I would be taking a more hands-on role in operations, starting immediately. There is one thing, I added. I need you to prepare a special table tonight. Table 12, the private dining room. I want it set for 8 people, but I only want 7 chairs. Antoine looked confused but nodded. Of course. Anything else? Yes. I want you to prepare a special menu for that table. Something memorable. By noon I had a plan in place. I'd contacted a local sign company that was willing to work on Thanksgiving for triple overtime pay. By 3 p.m., they'd installed a large, elegant sign in the front window, under new management Carter Hospitality Group. I'd also arranged for a photographer to document the evening. Not for revenge but for my own records. This was a significant moment in my business career and I wanted it properly documented. At 6 p.m., I changed into a black designer dress and took my position in the restaurant's front lobby. I'd sent the hostess home early, telling her I wanted to personally greet the evening's special guests. My family arrived promptly at 7 p.m., dressed in their Thanksgiving finest. Dad was wearing his best suit. Mom had on the pearl necklace she'd inherited from her mother. Emma was in a burgundy dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. And Marcus was with his wife Sarah and their 2 kids. They approached the hostess stand where I was waiting, all smiles and holiday cheer, clearly anticipating a lovely family dinner without the complication of their difficult daughter and sister. Dad reached the stand first. When he saw me, his smile faltered. Sophia? What are you doing here? Working, I said pleasantly. How can I help you this evening? Working? What do you mean working? Emma pushed forward. Sophia, we told you this was family only. You can't just show up and... Oh, I'm not showing up as a guest, I interrupted. I'm here as the owner. The silence that followed was absolute. Other diners in the restaurant were starting to notice the commotion near the front entrance. Owner. Marcus found his voice first. What are you talking about? I gestured to the new sign in the window. As of last night, I own Rosewood Bistro. Purchased it from David Chin for $2.5 million. Mom's face went pale. You bought the restaurant? Cash purchase. Closed this morning. Dad was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Why would you do that? Because you texted me yesterday to let me know I wasn't welcome at family Thanksgiving. I thought it might be nice to host my own. But we already have a reservation, Sarah said weakly. Yes, you do. Table 12, party of 7. Right this way. I led them through the restaurant to the private dining room in the back. The table was beautifully set with fine china and crystal glasses, candles flickering in the center. 7 chairs arranged around a table that could easily seat 8. Where's the 8th chair? Emma asked. There is no 8th chair. He said family only. I'm not family anymore, remember? They stood around the table, clearly unsure how to proceed. Please sit down, I said. Chef Dubois has prepared a special menu for your table. As they reluctantly took their seats, I remained standing. Before your meal arrives, I thought you might be interested in knowing a bit about your new dining establishment. Dad was gripping his napkin like a lifeline. Sophia, what are you doing? I'm giving you the history of Rosewood Bistro. Opened in 1987 by David Chin, a Vietnamese immigrant who started with nothing and built one of Chicago's most respected restaurants. Last year's revenue was $1.8 million, with a profit margin of 22%. We employ 37 people, all of whom will be keeping their jobs under the new management. Marcus was staring at his water glass. We get it. You're successful. You don't have to rub it in. Actually, I do have to rub it in. Because for the past 6 months, you've all acted like my success was something to be ashamed of. Like being a businesswoman made me less of a person, less of a family member. That's not true, Mom said softly. Isn't it? When's the last time any of you asked about my work? When's the last time you showed interest in what I've accomplished? Emma looked up from her menu. Your work isn't exactly relatable, Sophia. Not all of us can just buy restaurants on a whim. You're right. Not everyone can. Do you know why I can? They waited. Because 15 years ago when I was 17 I started washing dishes at a restaurant downtown. I worked every weekend and every summer learning the business from the ground up. In college I worked as a server, a bartender, a line cook. I learned every aspect of restaurant operations. I walked around the table as I spoke, making eye contact with each of them. After graduation I used my savings to buy a food truck. One truck, selling sandwiches outside office buildings. I worked 18-hour days, 7 days a week, for 2 years until I could afford to buy a small cafe. We know your story, Marcus said. Do you? Because you've never seemed interested in the details. You've never asked how I built Carter Hospitality Group from one food truck into a company worth $200 million. The number made Sarah actually gasp. You've never asked about the sleepless nights, the failed deals, the times I ate ramen noodles for weeks because every penny was going back into the business. You've never asked about the mentors who helped me, the mistakes I learned from, the small victories that kept me going. Sophia, Dad said quietly, we're proud of you. Are you? Because 6 weeks ago when Marcus asked for financial help, I offered to sit down with you both and help create a budget, help you find ways to increase your income and reduce your expenses. Remember what you said? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I said we didn't need advice. You said I didn't understand real problems because I'd gotten lucky with money. You said success had made me cold and selfish. I was upset. You were embarrassed. Embarrassed that your little sister had more money than you. Embarrassed that I'd built something while you were struggling. So instead of accepting help, you decided to punish me for succeeding. Chef Antoine appeared with the first course, 7 plates of butternut squash soup with truffle oil. He set them down carefully, glancing at me with curiosity. Thank you, Antoine. Please tell the kitchen they're doing excellent work tonight. After he left, my family sat in uncomfortable silence, staring at their soup. This is a lovely restaurant, Mom said finally, clearly trying to change the subject. It is. David Chin built something special here. He told me yesterday that family had always been the most important thing to him, but he learned over the years that family isn't just about blood relations. It's about people who support each other, who celebrate each other's successes instead of resenting them. We don't resent your success, Emma said. Don't you? When I bought my penthouse apartment, what did you say? Emma's face flushed. I said it was excessive. When I hired a personal assistant, what did Marcus say? That you were getting too big for your britches, Marcus admitted. When I started traveling internationally for business, what did Dad say? Dad was quiet for a long moment. I said you were losing touch with your roots. And when I offered to help with Marcus's financial problems, what did you all conclude? That money had changed you, Mom whispered. I nodded. So when you planned this family Thanksgiving, it was easy to exclude me. Because I'm not really family anymore. I'm just the successful sister who makes everyone else feel bad about their choices. That's not fair, Emma said. Isn't it? Let me ask you something. How many of you know what I'm doing for Thanksgiving dinner after I leave here tonight? They looked at each other, clearly having no idea. I'm going to Northwestern Memorial Hospital, where I volunteer every Thanksgiving serving dinner to patients who can't go home for the holidays. I've been doing it for 8 years. Did any of you know that? The silence answered my question. Do any of you know about the scholarship fund I established at our old high school? Or the small business loans I provide to restaurant workers who want to start their own places? Or the fact that I've helped 6 of my former employees buy their own homes? More silence. You see me as someone who cares more about money than family. But you've never bothered to learn who I actually am or what I actually do with my success. Antoine returned with the main course, herb-crusted lamb with seasonal vegetables. The presentation was flawless, but the tension at the table was thick enough to cut with a knife. Sophia, Dad said as Antoine left, what do you want from us? I want you to see me. The real me. Not the caricature you've created of a cold, money-obsessed businesswoman, but the person I actually am. And if we can't do that? Marcus asked. Then you'll have lovely memories of your last family dinner at Rosewood Bistro. Last dinner. Mom's voice was shaky. I'm not going to keep fighting for inclusion in a family that doesn't want me. I'm not going to keep defending my success to people who see it as a character flaw. I walked to the window that overlooked the restaurant's main dining room, where other families were enjoying their Thanksgiving meals, laughing and talking and creating memories together. You know what's funny? I bought this restaurant because I was angry. I wanted to prove a point, to show you that your rejection couldn't hurt me. But standing here now, watching other families celebrate together, I realized something. I turned back to face them. I don't want to be the person who buys restaurants out of spite. I don't want to be the daughter who has to prove her worth through grand gestures. I want to be part of a family that celebrates each other's successes, that supports each other through failures, that includes everyone regardless of their bank account balance. Emma was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Sophia, we're sorry. We never meant for it to go this far. I know you didn't, but it did go this far. And now we have to decide what happens next. What do you want to happen next? Dad asked. I want you to finish your dinner. I want you to enjoy this beautiful meal that Chef Antoine prepared. And then I want you to go home and think about whether you want a relationship with your daughter and sister, or whether you want to keep nursing your resentment about money and success. And if we decide we want a relationship? Marcus asked. Then you call me. Not to ask for financial help, not to criticize my choices, but to ask about my life. To share yours. To rebuild something that's been broken for too long. I walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Marcus? I looked into your financial situation after our argument. You're not behind on your mortgage because you don't make enough money. You're behind because you and Sarah spend $4,000 a month on restaurants, entertainment, and shopping. The offer to help you create a budget still stands. How did you? I'm good with numbers. It's why I'm successful. I left them sitting there with their herb-crusted lamb and their complicated emotions, and went to find Chef Antoine. How was the service for table 12? He asked. Perfect as always. Antoine, I need you to prepare 7 meals to go. To go. Full Thanksgiving dinners. Turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce, the works. Have them ready in 30 minutes. Of course. May I ask who they're for? Some people who are about to have a very different kind of Thanksgiving than they planned. An hour later, I was at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, carrying 7 complete Thanksgiving dinners into the ward where patients would otherwise be eating institutional food on the holiday. Mrs. Rodriguez in room 302 lit up when she saw the turkey and stuffing. Is this from that fancy restaurant downtown? It is. Happy Thanksgiving, Mrs. Rodriguez. Mr. Kim in room 315 actually cried when I explained that the meal was from Chef Antoine, whose reputation he knew well. I never thought I'd taste food like this again. By 10 p.m., I distributed all 7 meals and spent time talking with patients who had no family visitors, no holiday plans beyond whatever entertainment the hospital could provide. As I was leaving, my phone buzzed with a text from Dad. The dinner was beautiful. The conversation was harder. Can we try again? I typed back, Sunday dinner at my place? I'll cook. You cook. I've learned a lot of things over the years. Some of them don't involve money. We'll be there. 3 months later, Sunday dinners at my penthouse had become a family tradition. Not every conversation was easy and we still had plenty to work through, but we were talking. Really talking about work and dreams and fears and hopes. Marcus had taken my advice about budgeting and was slowly getting his finances back on track. Emma had started asking about my business, even expressing interest in joining Carter Hospitality Group in a marketing role. Mom and Dad had visited the hospital with me on Christmas, helping serve dinner to patients who couldn't go home. And Rosewood Bistro? It had become the flagship restaurant of Carter Hospitality Group's fine dining division, generating 15% more revenue under my ownership while maintaining the quality and character that David Chin had built over 30 years. But more importantly, it had become the place where my family learned that success wasn't something to be ashamed of or resentful about. It was something to be celebrated, shared, and used to make the world a little bit better. Every time we had a family celebration there, I remembered that Thanksgiving night when I'd stood in the dining room, angry and hurt and determined to prove a point. I'd bought a restaurant to exclude my family. Instead, I'd found a way to bring us back together. Sometimes the best business decisions are the ones that have nothing to do with business at all.